Okay, we have a lot to cover today. So let me just begin by greeting you all. Good evening. It's morning for some of you, and maybe afternoon. It's great to have people joining from different parts of the world. Let me introduce myself. I'm Evelina. I lead digital development at FOLLOW.ART, and I'm very happy to welcome grad support program applicants and our wider community to this webinar. And just a few housekeeping notes before we start. This webinar is recorded, and the recording will be published on our YouTube channel, so keep an eye for that. I also ask you to keep your mics off during presentations until the Q&A part that we will have in the end. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A box. If you have a specific question to the speaker, just mention their name so it's easier, and then we will go through them at the end of the session. So I just wanted to begin with the grad support program and how it came about. It was initiated this year from our observations and from what we were hearing from the student community about the challenges of transitioning from the supportive academic environment into the professional world, where suddenly you have to face practical questions such as studio rent, budgeting, applications, networking that you have to deal with. And with this program, we aim to support fine art and curatorial graduating students with mentorship tools and practical knowledge that some of us wished we were taught. And we're very happy to have partnered with organizations and individuals whose work is focused on demystification of the art field and strive to make it more inclusive and beneficial for everyone involved. So I'm very pleased to welcome our partners and speakers today. All About Curating team, Alexandra Steinacker-Clark, CCIComms PR, and Volta Art Fair, who are not joining us today as speakers, but they organized a special tour at their Basel Fair this June, open to all applicants. So we received applications from 11 countries and 26 academic institutions, which is very international. And as we were going through reflections, it was amazing to see such a strong sense of ambition and self-awareness, and also this strive for growth and development. And many of you mentioned this willingness to start conversation, open conversation with peers and professionals to receive critical perspectives on your work, and also willingness to go outside of the comfort zone and kind of expanding your network. And I was very pleased to see that some of you already started your own initiatives in your local communities with your peers, and also some of you started your art-related businesses. So it's great to see this entrepreneurial strive. You're also very honest about the challenges anticipated, such as balancing different commitments, maintaining momentum when leaving academia, which was a very structured and critical environment, and also facing the financial uncertainty. And there was also focus on visibility and balancing self-promotion while also developing the practice and focusing on the quality of your work. So we will try during this webinar and beyond during the program to address the above mentioned aspects and provide some clarity. So without due to say, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Veronica, who's the head of curatorial collaboration at FOLLOW.ART. Veronica's work focuses on sustainable curatorial practice and access to contemporary art. She actively contributes to public programs and workshops, fostering dialogue between artists and curators while addressing the professional realities of independent cultural work. So Veronica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Evelina, and hello, everyone. Great to be here. When choosing actually the topic to speak about today, I wanted to choose something very relevant to young professionals. So I decided to choose the question of how to maintain the connection with your audience. And when I speak about the audience, I do not only mean the collectors, I mean anyone who encounters your work. Um, we can move to the next slide, by the way. And yes, this is anyone who tagged along to during the, like on the opening. It's somebody perhaps who attended your final exhibition show. So anyone who comes across your work. And especially I wanted to speak about now because the final exhibition moment that perhaps many of you are having right now in the academies puts a lot of stress on you, and we all know that you need to put a lot of energy into, well, finishing the work and installing it properly and then finishing all the text. So it's a lot to think about. And I want to put another thing on your plate right now, and I want to say that it's important to focus on and like literally answer the question, what happens after someone sees your work? This is another very relevant question to add to the final exhibition or the also other exhibitions to come after graduations, because many people will come through the doors, many people will be at the exhibition, they will be, well, they all will be behaving differently, right? So there will be someone who is very interested in your work but is too shy to speak to you. There's going to be someone who doesn't know how you look like, so will not be able to speak to you. Or perhaps there will be someone who entered when you already left, so you're not physically there, right? So there's a lot of barriers, let's say. So this is the moment to think about it. So how do you basically prepare for that properly? And the first thing to think about is always to, well, make it that your work is, it can be traceable and people can identify you. We can go to the next slide as well. So the thing is, well, actually, an example, just a few months ago, I saw an Instagram story from the founder of the art consultancy who posted an artwork from the actual final exhibition at the Academy here in Latvia, and was asking, like, please say who's the author. I really want this work. And at the moment, I felt for both, for the woman who posted it and for the artist, because I felt like, well, I've been in those situations. Like, I know the frustration of not knowing who work is that. And then I also felt for the artist because I really hope like they got found, because that's such a missed opportunity otherwise. So the first thing is very basic. A label. That is very important, what you put next to your work as an artist or in the exhibition space as a curator. So all of you have a FOLLOW.ART card, and that comes in very handy during on-site art events. So it kind of like centralizes your whole practice. So it has the projects, and it has your artworks, and it has your text, and it has your links and marketplaces and publications, and of course contact information. There's also a support feature, which I will come back a bit later. But most importantly is that you can download your QR code, your unique QR code from your profile. And it's going to look like that. I put it on the slide as an example of mine. And it comes in different templates. And most importantly, it comes with a clear call to action. Discover more and support my practice. Because many people are quite allergic to QR codes because they're used widely, but we don't usually know what's behind them. But here it states very clearly. So please don't make your work disappear. Help it and help your audience to also know exactly how to stay in contact with you. And and perhaps buy also after. So the goal always should be to reduce the effort from the audience's side. But at the same time, it's not always that it ends up in the purchase. So buying the work is not the only way to support your work. So buying is important, of course. I don't want to, kind of undermine it, but it takes time. And it takes a lot of conversation, takes trust. It takes also several encounters. And this is exactly what makes art world so interesting, you know, the encounters, the talking to people. But then at the same time, it also means that we should not treat buying as the only possible outcome. And we can go also to the next slide. And this is also where it's shown in a wider shift in the art world. So in the Art Basel report and UBC survey of global collecting, that was that's the most recent one, when it says that direct sales from artists became the second largest channel by value, and that more collectors are visiting artist studios. Also, the Affordable Art Fair report states that 57% of millennial collectors buy art to support the artist. So that's their kind of like the aim, right? To support the artist. And what is stating very clearly here is that, you know, direct support, the studio visits, that it indicates that people really want to be part of artistic practice. And it's not just seeing the work at the exhibitions, the final result, let's put it that way, but it's always also visiting the studios, and it's a lot about following the development of the creative in general. And so this is also why we included so-called micro patronage feature into the card, so that anyone who comes across your work can just financially support your work outside of buying. And that's very valuable for both, well, you as artists and curators and the audiences, because they feel also engaged. And that is very important, to give them that direct way. Otherwise, yeah, they will be following you on Instagram, they will be liking what you do, and perhaps thinking that sometime later they will buy your work. But this gives them a direct way to support you right now. And so more than 100 members been using it, receiving from 10 to 200 euros per opening night. It does not compare to huge institutional grants, obviously, but it's something that can, you know, support your practice exactly as you go, and cover some very practical materials. So we can go also to the next slide. Yes, and here you can also see some of the testimonials of those who used it. But I wanted to cover also a few practical details. So recently we also had our first curatorial roundtable at FOLLOW.ART, where we gathered curators who use the micro patronage. So we kind of went through all the best practices, and this is me sharing their kind of advices and insights. So first thing was that to place a QR code next to your work or an exhibition space somewhere visible. And it's very obvious, but we've seen some things, some encounters when it's like really not visible and people just don't know what it is. And since it's a new thing, it's better to put multiple QR codes than one. And so with artists, a little bit straightforward. So we know like there's an artwork, so it makes sense that the QR code is right next to it. With curators, it's a little bit trickier. What conclusion we came is that it's good to put it in at the entrance, so that people notice it. The first thing that they notice it. Perhaps they will not scan it because they're not sure of what it is. But then when they have a walk around the space, and then somewhere in the space also really good to put it, so that they notice it for the second time. And when they exit, perhaps it's the same one that they saw when they entered. So that's a good kind of round. I think it's a good also thinking to kind of think about it strategically, like literally the user journey, how the audience moves around the space and where they will notice the QR code. And the second thing is also to be vocal about it. Again, it's a new thing, and as I mentioned, not every QR code will make sense to the person. So it's very important to actually mention it. And here comes this very delicate thing of a wording. And I received some feedback from those curators, and what they mentioned is that it's good to say that in this, by scanning this QR code, you can stay in contact with me and also support my practice if you wish. So leave it as an option. Nobody wants to come across really pushy. And also audiences also feel respected and that they're giving basically space. So yeah, and this is the way how you can stay in contact with people beyond the opening night. So that's very important. And finally, I also wanted to mention that your audience, of course, it's art lovers, but also your peers. From the reflection statements that we read, we also saw that many of you are looking for this intentional network, which is super important. And I just wanted also to encourage you to check out the connectory, which is the directory of all the members of FOLLOW.ART. So all the curators and artists can be found there. And then you can filter them by location and mediums and many different filters. So you can stay in touch, and you can also see what your peers are working on, which is very important, you know, this kind of knowledge sharing and seeing what is happening around the world. And perhaps, well, I'm sure you will be surprised how many people are covering very similar topics to you as well. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope this was something new, and well, I hope you get something out of it.
Thank you very much, Veronica. I think it's very nice that you've highlighted the importance of the visitor journey and what they are exposed to when they see your work. What is you know, the reference point, whether it's there, and it's especially valuable for the grad shows where a lot of people are going to come in. Not everyone is going to know you, but it's important to give them a way, you know, for this initial contact to continue. Thank you. We'll now move to our next speaker, and I'd like to introduce Magzabin Hack. Magzabin has over 14 years of experience in designing, executing, researching, and curating cultural projects worldwide. She's the founder of All About Curating, a global curatorial platform dedicated to decentralizing curatorial knowledge. She's joined today by her colleague, Veronica Popova. So ladies, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meeting you all. And yeah, my name is Magzabin. Thank you so much, Evelina, for your kind introduction. And yeah, currently I'm the founder of All About Curating. So today I'll be talking a little bit about what All About Curating is and what actually made us interested to join ventures with FOLLOW.ART. Yeah, I'm quite excited to hear about the applications, that there are quite a lot of entrepreneurial projects that was submitted because the journey of All About Curating has some resonance with that. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about like how we started, to give a little bit of context. So yeah, in my professional background, I'm a civil engineer, and then I went to photography, and then I continued my practice as a art curator. And while I was graduating, so kind of similar to all of you, where you are at now. So when I was graduating, I found out that there were not much spaces which were accessible for free, information about curation and opportunities about curation. So a lot of the paid portals were there. However, it was not really accessible from everywhere. I'm originally from Bangladesh, and in Bangladesh, PayPal doesn't work. It's 2026, it still doesn't work. And it is not only the story of Bangladesh only. This is the reality for a lot of the countries around the world. So that was one issue. And the second issue was safeguarding information. And a lot of people got to know about a lot of things, but they preferred to keep it to themselves, which was really ridiculous to me. And I still stand by that statement. And so I became kind of angry, and I just started like a public platform and started inviting my friends and colleagues who were curator and artists and share opportunities about curation. And over time, it became a community of almost 6,000 people, 6,000 art workers from all around the world. And then a lot of questions started coming. That where can we find this information about publication or education or different kinds of resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I asked the group that high. So we are a community now, it seems like. So what would you expect from the group? How can we actually, bring our best efforts and create something that would be beneficial for all? So a lot of feedbacks came in, a lot of beautiful feedbacks came in, and that actually shifted and transferred and reflected onto the All About Curating platform at the moment. So because Facebook group, where we first started, was not really optimized. It still is not optimized for everything that we wanted to do. So we wanted to then having our own platform, and currently we are offering several on-site and online programs and trying to also support our greater global community. We have an outreach to over 150 countries around the world, and we have already supported hundreds of artists through our also free programmings and everything. And so it was the core was always to create access, to make it transparent. And we are also kind of building a database of information, because disseminating knowledge has always been our core. So we are building a database of all kinds of information on and about curation. And this is going to be absolutely for free for everyone. What do I mean by a database? A database of opportunities, a database of curatorial collectives, a database on educational materials on curations, so on and so forth. So this is a big project that we took onto our shoulder, and quite excited to work on that. But we are a small team, so we are doing it slowly but gradually, also trying to be mindful about our limits and capacity. Sometimes we tend to forget that, but I think keeping that in mind is also very healthy. And so why we became interested to join forces with FOLLOW.ART, when Veronica approached to me, I thought that, this is really a perfect alignment with All About Curating's core, because we have always been supportive of different minds, and in whichever way we could be helpful. And in this particular case, this is the fresh graduate, so we are very, very excited to also support their journey, because we know that how much of a struggle it is to find all these resources. And when you are graduating, the world is too big and there's too much information everywhere, but to find something really concrete, to have a structured to build a structured strategy is very, very important. And this is what we do, like in the Creative Synergies program. So this is not really a typical course or a program or conference or whatever, but this is a very strategic mentorship that we put the participant first, meaning everyone's project and everyone's interest is always the main priority. So we don't want to just give like a templated homeworks and then, okay, let's complete it by the end of the 8 weeks. That is not at all. We do have a guideline of homeworks, but also each week, depending on each participant's practice, we also include this additional tasks or exercises to bring these projects into life. So we are very happy to be a part of this beautiful initiative with FOLLOW.ART. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. And I'm very much looking forward to see all the applications very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Magzabin. It's amazing that you mentioned this structure and very hands-on approach to each individual curatorial project, or maybe it's just an idea at the time. And it's amazing to have you as part of the prize as well. All About Curating is going to select one curatorial applicant for their mentorship program. Thank you very much. I'd like now to invite Alexandra Steinacker-Clark. She's an American-Austrian art historian, curator, writer, and podcaster. She's the founder and host of All About Art. Some of you might know it, podcast, and she's a co-director of Next Gen, which is a program designed to support early career arts professionals, and is also part of Association of Women in the Arts. She recently published a book, Working in Art, How to Build a Career in the Art World, which is full of practical advice from the arts professionals. She's going to tell us more about that. Alexandra, I'm welcoming you now.
Thank you so much, Evelina. And thank you for everyone, or thank you to everyone for being here this evening and for joining this amazing call. I already feel like I've learned a lot from every one of the partners in this amazing program. But as Evelina just said in that wonderful introduction, I am Alexandra. I am the founder and host of the All About Art podcast, which I started just over 5 years ago in 2021. So I have been running it for quite some time. And I run a membership platform that is aimed specifically at early career arts professionals. It's called Next Gen. And I have just recently released my book called Working in Art, How to Build a Career in the Art World. You probably can't see it on camera, but this one is a very beat up, well-loved copy because I take it to all my interviews and things like that when it comes to discussing the book. So this book is a result of over 130 interviews that I've conducted throughout the last 5 years. On my podcast, of course, but also the interviews that I conducted specifically for the book. People ask me, did I put some of the podcast interviews into the book? And the answer is technically no, but I wouldn't have known what questions to ask and what sort of discussion topics to broach if I hadn't had those years of experience in interviewing and asking different professionals about what they do. And I started the podcast originally back in university because I felt that the art sector as a place to work and as an area to build a career in, I felt like it was so incredibly opaque. And so starting this podcast came from a personal curiosity of not knowing where I wanted to go in my career. And so I started talking to the people in the sector who were doing all of these interesting things that I wanted to know more about. And so it just came out of me being quite nosy, really. And there are so many questions about the sector that even people within the sector have a really hard time answering. And some of those questions include, what does it mean to be a curator? What other jobs are out there if you want to work in culture, or if you want to work with artists, but you don't want to work as an artist? Where can you start once you figure out what you sort of want to do? Where do your personality traits fit in? Because some personalities suit other jobs better than maybe some other ones. And all of these questions were kind of going through my mind when I started the podcast, but really I was able to voice them and solidify these questions in the process of writing Working in Art. So to give you a little bit of a better idea, and we will go into some of the lessons I learned from the book in just a minute, but each chapter is a different art career. So we've got building a strong foundation. That's where I talk about how to set a really healthy professional base. Working in museums, working in curating, which I think will interest a lot of people, working in framing and art handling, working in artist and studio management. Now, for the artists listening in, this is a really interesting chapter to hear it from the other side of what it means to be a studio or artist manager and what's out there for you in terms of potential collaborations. Working at an art fair, working as an art advisor. There's 14 different chapters, so there's a lot within this. And there are a lot of people who started off thinking that they wanted to be artists or curators and ended up going into a different direction, Or maybe they started off as something else. Like, for example, in the curating chapter, someone studied psychology and is now a curator at one of the biggest museums in Austria. So the book also spans a quite Western but international audience, or like of my interviewees, I have quite, I try to take an international approach as best I could. And so, you know, even if you are sure that you want to be an artist and that you want to be a curator, even if those are the paths that you are in and you are very confident in that, I still think it is key to understand the ecosystem in which you function, because it's really instrumental in developing a thriving career. So I want to talk a little bit about just 3 lessons that I learned from the book, not to just present the book to you. I want to really show you or talk to you about some of the key takeaways that stuck with me. So the first lesson is from working in art is that you need to be able to find your why. And it sounds a little bit like wishy-washy when I say it like that, like find your reason of being in the sector. But I think it's so important to understand why you are in the sector, because it will, number one, allow you to find people who are aligned with those values. For example, I will say that All About Art and my brand aligning with FOLLOW.ART was such an amazing collaboration that started actually back when Evelina came on my podcast, All About Art. So if anyone's interested in hearing that, you know, you can listen to us speak to each other. But I was able to find this collaboration because I was very clear on my why, on my mission, and it was easy for me and easy for another organization that has that same why to find. It was easier for us to find each other because we were very, very clear on that, and our values aligned so beautifully. And then it became a really wonderful partnership. And so you surround yourselves with the right people and you end up building each other up. And what finding your why will also do is it will help you make the decisions that are more aligned with where you want to be in the future. So finding clarity in your why early on, even if you don't know exactly what it is, just taking a couple of steps to mull it over, to think about it, I think it will lend you a lot of strength in hard situations and in situations where you might need to make some difficult decisions. The second lesson is to stay curious. And I understand if that sounds a little bit vague, but I do think that if you keep this goal in mind, like, okay, I need to stay curious, I need to be asking these questions, I need to be thinking about the wider picture. When you're keeping that in mind when approaching situations in your professional life, it will take you really, really far. And this is something that, for example, employers look for in interviews, but they never actually ask it outright. No one's going to ask you, are you curious? But they will be assessing if you show a level of genuine curiosity and interest. And if you show that you're curious, that you're willing to learn things that you may not know, or that you're willing to understand new structures, that will always work in your favor. And I will also say this, is that curating or networking is also going to be incredibly, it will benefit from staying curious. So when you are talking to someone and you're networking and you're talking to them either as an artist and you're talking to a curator or a potential gallerist, or you're a curator talking to artists, obviously showing that curiosity will allow you to learn more about them and their work and their skills, and it will also make them feel heard. And the reason why I say this is because I do find that sometimes people forget that, and we often go into presenting ourselves or our work without fully thinking about who we're presenting to. And so the more you know about the person, especially if you're looking for collaboration, the better. And then my final lesson that I learned from writing, working in art, and what I learned from running the All About Art podcast for the last 5 years is that there is no one right way to have a career in the arts. I think it's important for everyone to keep in mind that you can change your mind. You may start a fine art degree and you might decide that you want to be a curator, but then you might end up going into fundraising and then you end up leading a team down the line. all of this is possible, and that's even a career progression that museum director Sally Talent, who is now going to be directing the Hayward Gallery in London, talks about in this book. So just keeping in mind that all these skills that you're learning in whatever area you're trying to learn and develop in, those skills are transferable, and your career may take you places that you didn't expect. And it's okay to change what you thought your career might look like. And that's where the growth lies. Yeah, that's it from me. But I really hope that for those of you who get working in art, that you enjoy it. And I hope that this has been a helpful little miniature lesson sharing.
Thank you, Alexandra. It really was. And just repeating your three points is knowing your why you want to be in the field, and maybe, you know, you will find a different answer. So it's very important to kind of constantly asking, because, you know, your life changes, everything moves very quickly. So kind of repeatedly asking yourself why is very, very grounding. Staying curious, and there is no one way that, you know, one specific way that careers in the arts unfold. Each path is very unique, but all these points are very beautifully joining together. Thank you very much. I'd like to now invite Christina Iannou, the founder and director of award-winning strategic communications and PR consultancy, CCIComms. I know some of you were really looking forward to the PR tips. So here they are. Christina comes with over 10 years of experience in helping cultural initiatives and independent creators, as well as startups, to define and amplify their voice internationally. Christina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelina. Apologies, I do suffer from a cold, but I hope that everyone can hear me well. And I'm delighted to be here with everyone, all the partners, and all the people who joined today. And yes, it's time to talk about PR in a way where we discover how can you artists and curators be noticed by the media, partners, business partners, platforms that showcase artists or curators. So it's important to really just look, what do you need? What do you need to have in your luggage to get there? So we can continue with the presentation. I know there are some slides, and I'll just talk through them. So the challenge today that most creators feel is that they really need to be everywhere. They need to have access to all platforms and post. But the actual challenge is making your work discoverable and legible in an overloaded cultural landscape. So how can you approach this? How can you define your own story in the best channels you can use that work for you, and have people understand you, follow you, and engage with you more, right? So it's important to help people clearly encounter your ideas, understand your creative perspectives, and follow your cultural investigations. We can move on with the slides. So navigating the art world visibility. So the reality is that in the past, it was harder to find, recognize creators, understand their work, or how you can access them. Now, it seems that also coming from the Art Basel report, younger collectors increasingly discover practitioners through digital platforms. Veronica mentioned earlier, I think, that they buy directly from artists. So it's actually opening a lot. So having your own content is, of course, encouraged because it adds to your storytelling. And this is an important moment to make use of all this. So consider for yourself, ask yourself, can someone find accurate professional information about your practice in less than 30 seconds? We can move on to the next slide. I think it's one before, one slide. Yes. Okay, that's the next one. So the power of precision. Precision is such an important thing And it has to do with how you centralize your practice in relation to your storytelling. So true PR is about clarity. So if people can understand your work, your narrative, your focus area, then they will relate. So the more precise you are, people understand you, relate with you and your work, and they can actually amplify it. They can talk about it. Media can write about it. People can recommend you or your work because they understand it. And I have some examples here, maybe artists you know, like Theaster Gates, who really all his work and practice focuses around urban transformation. And this dedication actually shows how invested he was in this topic, and that gave clarity. Same for Olafur Eliasson, who focused on light, climate, experience, and interactivity with the earth. And Marina Abramovich, of course, we know how powerful her work is, focusing on endurance, vulnerability, the body, nudity. So it's actually helped us immediately relate with those artists and identify. So we know who they are, we know their name, their face, but also what their work is about, which is super powerful and helps actually differentiate. So if people can easily explain your concept to someone else, your PR is working. It means that you are already in the right place to be in kind of part of conversations, people recommending you, mentioning your work being featured in the press. We can move on in the next slide. Then there is this thing we can talk about, CVs versus narratives. So the reality is that you might have a really long CV or list of exhibitions, but the audience or your future buyers, your future collaborators, they won't memorize your exhibitions or your awards. What they will focus on is the themes you care about, the tension, the questions. And an example is, of course, if you're a curator, obviously you know Hans Ulrich Obrist, who is a very prominent name, and he has built an identity around global conversations thanks to his interview project, and he tried to really bring together this knowledge, interviewing lots of curators, museum directors, etc. And he actually continues doing that throughout his practice. So it's actually his, let's say, his signature project. Plus, if you see his Instagram, he's always had his post-its with thoughts, ideas, quotes, and he has this very distinctive approach. And there are more examples, of course, where people can see your work or see something, can see your post and immediately understand that this is Hans, for example. That's interesting, right? So how can you action on this? Define your core questions and the emotional political territory your work occupies. And that has to do a little bit with the research that we'll talk about later. We can move on in the slides. So talking about cumulative visibility, why is this important? Because many artists and creators today, they get anxiety, or they see what other people do and they think, okay, I need this one moment of wow moment, or they're secretly hoping for that kind of viral thing and they're really going for it or they're aiming for it. And that's actually wrong, because meaningful visibility is cumulative and built through consistency across different ecosystems. So the more you show your values or the topics you care about, what your research is about or your artworks are about, then the more consistent you are and you unfold this story, the people trust in your work, in your faith, in what you do, right? So that makes people, from the buyer to the journalist to everyone involved who comes across your work, to say, I trust that this person is here to stay, and I believe that their work is interesting. I find it inspiring because it has a continuity and there are different angles or layers to it that you help them see, right? So an example here is Wolfgang Tillmans and Arthur Jaffa, especially Arthur Jaffa. I love his work. He spent decades developing work around Black visual culture and image circulation before a wider mainstream recognition. He had built this, let's say, this pool of kind of content, works, research, and then he then became mainstream. And thanks to this continuity, this consistency, his work was kind of recognized, right, with time. I can move on with the slide. So it was mentioned before, I think, by everyone that the peer network, the ecosystem is so important. And indeed, your peers are super valuable for your visibility. It's interesting to think that, you know, you might know some artists or some curators or some people who work in the arts or someone from your community who works in a space that gets rented or is available to host shows. All these people are so important, and you know, even someone who's just starting with the first curatorial project, tomorrow they might work for an institution or they might write an article. So they can be super valuable to you. So don't be quick to judge and say, well, I don't have a strong network. No, you have to enrich your network, give them options, give them ideas so they can grow, and that way you grow as well. And that's very important because it goes both ways. The more you recommend people, talk about the work, the more also they bring you to the table, right? So allow this conversation, this two-way dialogue to happen. It's so important. An example here is, I like to speak with examples because you see these things. This approach has brought success, like with the Young British Artists movement, where Damien Hirst and Sarah Lucas, they actually worked on collective shows, shared experiences before they take their separate ways, they have their separate branding. So they really worked together and they supported each other, which was, you know, it's so powerful if you read about it. And same for queer artists and curators. I imagine that, you know, they didn't have access. They started working with as collectives, and that brought a lot of discussion, that brought a lot of opportunity and visibility, obviously. So community itself is an infrastructure, and the more you invest in it, the better. You might say, I don't have a network, or I'm not so active, or I'm the only artist. There are ways to go closer to such thing, especially in the arts. In comparison to other sectors, you find opening events, you find talks. So go to the talk, stay longer to speak to the speaker, to engage. So if you want to, you have to try to invest in your ecosystem. Next slide. And then documentation. Documentation is really a passport. Lots of people, they wait for an opportunity to arrive before documenting, or they just, especially if you're a painter or you do sculpture or you're curating, maybe you're not documenting as much the process or behind the scenes or what it takes to come to the result. That is super important to do early on and try to document. I think social media help a little bit with that because I've seen more and more people doing that. But actually, it's super important because it works as professional memory. We talked about Arthur Jaffa, but actually, it's part of it. It's part of your intellectual property. And that means that you, as a source, you create something, a project, an artwork, and that you can provide it in different ways. Maybe there comes a day where you have a paid newsletter and you, let's say you have a free newsletter, but you have a paid version or a paid Substack showing the behind the scenes for a very interesting project. So you never know how this content will be useful to you, I guess also in commercial terms. So consider is that your intellectual property really beyond this creative practice, right? It's a product. So documentation is important. And an example here is, I don't know if you know Legacy Russell, who is a very interesting person in the arts, and she is a curator. She does essays, talks, and she's focusing on glitz feminism and identity in the digital space. And she has recorded her work, documented her work so well that it's a gift that keeps on giving. She keeps on being on different shows, podcasts, and she writes, and she has academic papers, and it all comes from her practice and documentation, and she talked about it openly. So it's actually an interesting example. Next slide. And also here to mention that there is a pressure that you have to perform success, you have to be everywhere. But actually, if you think about artists and names who made impact, like Celine Condorelli here, who highlighted the interdependence, and actually that you cannot act on isolation, or you cannot just say, me, I'm the artist, I can do everything on my own. No, there is an interdependence with the art world, the art system, that we have to take into consideration and try to navigate it. So this sharing this is important, and audiences are drawn to honesty and intellectual specificity, not performative busyness. Now, you don't have to show that you constantly work on something, but show that you relate with the art ecosystem, and the current discussions in your let's say creative sphere. Next slide. So eventually think also as a researcher, not an influencer. So an influencer, who is a content producer, he will think, how do I stay visible all the time? How I bring a bigger audience, more visitors, more followers? But a practitioner's focus is not that. It's what long-term cultural memory am I building? What is your vision, and how your content, your work adds to it, and how you show it. And Trevor Panklin is an example because he's an artist / researcher. So he brought his research, creative research, and he built interesting research around surveillance, investigating surveillance systems, and that later became a trend. So again, this has to do with the documentation, but how the research can put you in the right direction to kind of show your story, build your narrative, your persona, and your positioning. Moving on. So some case studies from us at CCIComms. We work with some creators, and we support cultural initiatives, but we also occasionally work with independent creators, including artists and curators. So I'm gonna briefly mention these 4 examples, 2 artists and 2 curators. Amy Carl is an interesting one because she is an artist who has an interesting positioning at the intersection between art, biotechnology, and AI. And she has managed to develop really smart cross-industry partnerships, such as her collaboration with HP Labs, so Hewlett-Packard Labs, because she works with 3D printing. And 3D printing is actually, let's say, part of her production, creative practice. And she also gave, let's say, she documented exactly, and she gave of her process to HP, and this became a brand partner. So she gave some of her behind the scenes, the process of creating her work that added to the values and collaborations for HP branding, and she also benefited from access to the space and not paying for equipment. Huma Kabakshi is a Turkish, so Amy Carl is based in the US, by the way, but she has a global profile. Huma Kabakshi is a Turkish curator. I think she's based in London, and she works with kind of art, anthropology, hospitality. And the interesting thing she did is, instead of going just with art first, standard art platforms or exhibition models, she developed eventually an interesting supper club that combines food and art, and it's a very interesting concept that set her apart. And she started bringing together shareable experiences, art, food, engaging with all the senses, that helped a lot with her positioning. Helen Bullock is a printmaker. She's an artist and illustrator. She has this distinctive raw hand-drawn visual language, and she has actually, she's very proactive and very artistic, and she managed to translate fine art into luxury fashion collaborators. She proactively shared her visual let's say, ideas and some sketches with brands and the artistic directors of those brands, like Bottega Veneta. And if you go to some of the biggest airports, you might see her work and sketches being featured there. So she had some really powerful collaborations, and she's also very active on live painting and brand partnerships, you know, unfolding this kind of live experience. So shareable and experiential moments. And Ellie Leventaki is a curator, upcoming curator based in Athens, her positioning is clear, because even though she started working with collectives or curator collectives, she then started becoming more of defining her own personal positioning, which was around collective memory, digital archives, and research. And that helped her define exactly her own positioning, build her own project. Now she runs the Berlin project in Athens that is an open space, questioning the notion of open calls, and she hosts debates there, etc. Next slide. I think we're almost done. So yeah, the final takeaway is to stop trying to be a non-stop content machine. You don't have to. You have to be clever and strategic about the tools you use, and it really has to do with your positioning and your practice too. So the tips here are, this is what I want you to take with you. Define your singular narrative and keep documenting your work. This is super important. And you know, understand what are the topics, the focus areas you're interested in terms of themes and topics and stories in the wider sense. And not just, for example, that I want to paint landscape, but I want to focus, let's say, on landscape that will be, so you have to see it also as if you were a person in front of the world. Like, what do you want people to think, and articulate that, because that way actually you help people follow your story. Then invest heavily in your horizontal peer ecosystem. Obviously, we talked about it. Do focus on not just finding connections, but also make sure they are really good connections and you support them as well. And embracing modern digital tools that prioritize direct connection over algorithmic noise, such as the FOLLOW.ART card, of course. So thank you so much. And I took a bit of time, but I hope that was useful.
Thank you, Christina. That was very insightful. Thank you for the examples as well. And we're a bit over time, but I just want to remind that in July, 3 fine art and 3 curatorial applicants will be selected to receive FOLLOW.ART yearly membership, a copy of Alexandra's book, one-to-one peer training with Christina, and also a special prize for curatorial applicant from All About Curating. And I also want to highlight that no matter whether you're shortlisted or not, it's very important for us to maintain the contact. And we also plan to host another roundtable. So applicants, please keep an eye for the invitation. And if you move to the next slide, in case you're not a FOLLOW.ART member, what are you waiting for? Please join. And also, we invite to use the special code that you can see on the screen. It's valid until Friday, and it allows to access the pro features of the card, including what Veronica was talking about, the support my practice feature, plus a fuller portfolio statistics and more. So you can really benefit from that. So I'd like to thank all of you, the speakers and those who joined in today for your attention, and I hope it was useful. It was incredibly insightful for me as well. And now I'd like to move to the questions. So I'll make sure that everyone can open their mics. 1 second.
There is one question in a Q&A section that I can just answer right away, because I think it's a very important one as well, like regarding contributions, whether they, what does a person do with taxes? Does it count as an income or a gift? So basically, it counts as a contribution. So you're not selling anything through FOLLOW.ART, so it does come as a contribution. But in every country, after some sum of money, you need to declare it. It's a very like basic procedure. In Latvia, that would be, for example, 1,500 euros per year. So that's kind of like sums that we're talking about. And so you need to check in your country as well, because perhaps that can vary. But basically we use Stripe as a transactional like partner, and we don't take any commission from that. Stripe takes like 2% for the transaction. So yes, I hope I answered the question. Let me know. And yes, Victoria, I think she has a hand.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much. It was very insightful. I am a curator. I graduated 2 years ago, and I have been like working in this field for over 5 years. But like I studied from journalism, and now like I switched to curation. And my main question, like the problem I'm facing, it's to collaborate with different venues. Actually, how to find the venues for the project, because like I have a lot of ideas, of course, and I have a lot of artists I want to work with. But then when I decide to start, the question is how to, again, like to collaborate and to make the venue to be a partner, not just like to rent the space or something like this. So that when you can help with the audience and when the venue is interested in this collaboration and like funding. So yeah, like two main questions. If you like have any suggestion, advice, I would be very grateful.
I'm wondering if Mahzabin, you might have a tip on that.
Sure. Hi, Victoria. This is the question of every independent curator's life. And about collaborating with an institution, it happens in many different ways. What do I mean by that? First of all, what kind of institution? What do they actually look for? What if your project is aligned with their like vision or not? So these are some of the very core things that institutions always look for. A lot of the institution, it also happens, I mean, this is kind of like the primary situation, right? And afterwards, this also happens that a lot of the public funds or even private funds actually they prefer an institutional collaboration. So in that case, you can actually approach the institution that, hey, I would like to do this project, which is for XYZ reason, is a good fit for your institution, and also a good fit, your institution is a good fit for the project as well. And we would like to apply for this and that grant. Would you like to be a collaborator? So in that case, a lot of institutions does actually collaborate with you in this case, like specifically for Berlin or in Germany. This is really a very, very common case, because also for the historical reasons that the public money or the private money, or the private money meaning that are coming from different corporates or like CSR funds, like CSR fund is like corporate social responsibility funds. So there are corporates who always have this additional sums in their account, which they actually invest in cultural sector. So for this kind of funds, they do not give it to an individual, but an institution. So you can also approach to an institution that, okay, I'm going to be applying for this and that fund, either private or public. So would you like to collaborate on this? And a lot of the cases, institutions does do that, because even though maybe it's a public institution or a private institution, funding is always also a challenge for institutions as well. Like if you go to one of the biggest institutions in Berlin, for example, which we do as part of like our another project, which is called the Art Intensive Berlin. This is all about understanding the Berlin ecosystem. How does it work? How the institute, who are the people, first of all? Who are the curator? What is the history of the institution, and how does the funding work? And when you go to, for example, Hamburger Bahnhof, which is one of the key major institutions in Berlin, and they do blockbuster exhibitions, let's say, of the country or in Europe, their curators are also investing more than 50% of their time in fundraising, even though they are receiving like a statutory fund from the government. So meaning like they are receiving X amount of fixed amount to run the institution, but for bigger projects, they need funds. So why I'm talking about this is basically is that, so when you have any kind of like, opportunity to also apply for external funds, in that cases, institutions also becomes more interested in collaborating. I don't know if that answers your questions directly, or do you have any follow-up question to ask?
It's helpful. Like, I understand that my question is quite general, but anyway, I just asked maybe like I could find like more suggestion on what I have already done in this, and maybe I'll understand what I can done like more. And also, if I may ask you, Mazabin, regarding the Ask a Curator online session you are going to have next week, but I see the deadline already passed. Just like the question, if it's still possible to apply because it passed like on Monday, like for next week, or no?
We organize it every month. So every month we do an open call, and it's free portfolio review. And this is basically for asking questions directly about your practice, about the field, about curating, or how your portfolio is reviewed, etc. And you are most welcome to apply for the next month. For this one, unfortunately, the application is closed and we already made the selection. But yeah, we organize it every single month. So you're most welcome to apply next month.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I just also wanted to say that if you're based in the UK, we are working with the Visual Artists Association that run a program called Open Spaces, where they are actually contacting spaces who are open to host exhibitions and artwork. So maybe we can connect after the call, and I can tell you more about it. But thank you so much for your question.
Evelina, sorry, I just also remembered another thing. Also in Berlin, there's this institution called Transiträume, which is like transit room in English, and they are currently actually running this open call for different spaces around Berlin, and they are looking for proposals, basically. So if somebody has any project or proposal, you can also reach out to them. And until September, they will be hosting this event around Berlin. So, and this is absolutely for free. This is some of the, I mean, these are not really white cube places, but these are mostly, alternative spaces where one can organize an exhibition or art event. So this is actually a very good opportunity. So you can check out Transiträume as well if you want to do something in Berlin. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just like to take the last question that I see in the chat with Anna asking about the challenge for people to register at the FOLLOW.ART in order to see her card. I just want to clarify that when you have your card link, it's visible for everyone. So if you publish it as a QR code, or if you send the link, anyone can access your card, anyone can save it to the mobile wallet or add your contact to the contact list and revisit it later after, say, encountering your work at the exhibition or meeting you in person. So in this way, let's say a recipient of the card should not be a FOLLOW.ART member. On the other hand, in order to be foundable in the connectory, that's only reserved for curators and artists, because it's a professional database for collaboration. So I hope that that answers the question, and thank you very much. I can see also Diana answered it quite extensively. Thank you. I'd like to again wish you a good evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And please look for the recording on YouTube, and with grad support program applicants, we'll stay in touch. Thank you very much.